Shabbat Shalom, friends. Good Shabbos. We have an interesting parsha this week. I'm not going to share on the pieces that they're going to talk about tomorrow, but just a little bit of where I was sitting with Chayei Sara, the life of Sarah, this week. There's an interesting pair of occurrences. First of all, anybody, if you're keeping score in your Torah, this is the parsha where the first thing that happens is Sarah dies. And so Abraham goes and buys a burial site, a plot, the cave of Machpelah, from the Hittites. And we wind up ultimately getting to a place where when Abraham, so we lay Sarah to rest there at the cave of Machpelah, and then when Abraham himself passes and ultimately he is laid to rest, there's a really striking moment when Isaac and his half-brother Ishmael come together to lay their parents to rest, to lay Abraham to rest in particular. And the reason I was thinking about these two pieces is that they offer a really interesting valence on who is in and who is out. I say that because, well, first of all, the Hittites clearly are a foreign tribe. Different bunch of people. It's cool. Abraham reaches this agreement, buys the cave from them, and it's copacetic. There is a lot of drama, however, in and around the question of Isaac and Ishmael. For those of you who are used to doing the Amidah aloud, you might note that it goes Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, of the Avot at least, not the mothers, but Ishmael doesn't make it into that list, if you were noticing. Abraham is his father, but Hagar is his mother, not Sarah. And Sarah is sort of the mother of our Jewish people, now to go back through like the mothers of the Amidah. Chayei Sara, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Hagar didn't make that cut either. And so it's an interesting thing to hold that they are half-siblings, both the children of Abraham, and they're family enough to be part of saying goodbye to Abraham together. But at the same time, Ishmael doesn't get included in the laundry list of Avot ve'imachot, as you might hear tomorrow morning in the Amidah, for instance. Ishmael winds up being the famed progenitor figure of a lot of the Arab world. Islam is thought of in that way. And so when you hear people talk about, for instance, the Abrahamic religions, who are they talking about? The monotheistic ones. What were you saying, Jared?
I just said Judaism and Islam.
Judaism and Islam. And oftentimes there's one more that gets included in there.
Christianity.
Thank you. Christianity as well. And so it just feels like a very interesting time and moment to sit with who is family from that standpoint. The Hittites, they're another tribe. They are a foreign people. We have this degree of commerce with them. Cool. But things get a little bit complicated with the half-siblings, with the cousins, so to speak. I was thinking about it a lot from two valences in particular. First of all, those of you with whom we've met before know me. My name is Rabbi Nick Renner. My full name is Nicholas Patterson Renner. I don't have a single Jewish name on my driver's license. And the reason for that is that I actually myself am the product of an intermarriage. My dad is still Methodist Christian. My mom is Jewish. Became a rabbi. But the question, who are my cousins, takes on an interesting valence if you think about who is in and out. My cousins are my cousins. They're my relatives. I grew up hanging out with them. But my cousins Doug and Maggie are various forms of Christianity, and they've woven out of a few different kinds in their own spiritual journeys themselves. It's fine. I grew up conservative. I was ordained Reconstructionist. I serve a conservative synagogue now. It's cool. So forgive me if I couldn't quite keep track of all of the Christian iterations of Maggie and Doug, my cousins. But then I have my cousin Becca on my mom's side, who is also Jewish. Is she more cousin or less cousin? Technically, she is either a cousin twice removed. It's my grandfather's brother's granddaughter. So that part may make her a little bit less cousin than Maggie and Doug, who are the kids of my dad's sister. But she's also my Jewish cousin. And so we have a certain thing in common with this. Hers, I remember going to her bat mitzvah celebration when I was a little kid and seeing all of this stuff. Wow, that's super cool up in Boston. And looking up to that in a way that was different with Maggie and Doug. They didn't have, B'nai Mitzvah in the same way. They have a Christmas tree. That's cool. And so it's a question of who is in and who is out. For me and my family, because of those lines that are drawn by virtue of marriage, it's a complex thing to figure out who is part of me, who is in with me, and who is out. Can't ever really read my cousins out of something, but I also know they're not Jewish and they're not thrown into this whole set of stuff. Reminds me of talking to my dad about Jewish events and things like that. And sometimes if he wants to offer a critique or something like that, I'll say, not to be critical of Jews or anything like that, and he's not, and I know he's not like anti-Semitic or whatever, but he actually feels himself as enough on the outside that he wants to be cautious how he speaks about Judaism to his own kid. It's a really interesting thing. If I weren't a rabbi, would he do that? I'm not sure. But it's an interesting thing that actually sets us in slightly different places. And Lord knows this time of year that we are moving into post-Thanksgiving, when all the decorations go up and all the animatronic nightmare that you find in Lowe's and all of that stuff is on full display, whether you are in or out takes on a really different valence as well. It's going to take on a really different valence for all of you. Being Jewish at the time of Christmas is a remarkable experience. But the other one I'll also offer, and I'm not going to pull this thread too far, but it's striking to me to be sitting in this place of tenuous ceasefire in the Middle East with the enemy and the other and all of these things we might say about the people with whom Israel has been at war. If we read them in the story as the cousins on some level. If we read them in the story as the half-sibling. If we read them in the story as actually we go back far enough that we might get together with them to say farewell to Abraham, as happens in this week's Torah portion. The question of who is in and who is out, and who you read as being in your own life and who is out, it's a complicated one. Will my own kids have the same relationship with Christianity that I do? Probably not, because they don't have a Christian parent. They have sort of distant cousins who they see not as often as I'd like, but they probably won't have the same relationship with it. By that same token, we have descended a long way from Ishmael on one side and Isaac on the other. Are we still the cousins? It's an interesting question to actually sit and ponder who is in and who is out, because the implications are pretty big today. When you think about who is in and who is out, who you in your own life, in your own story, in your own identity, think of as being part of your story, and who's like the Hittites, who's somebody else. I'm not going to answer exactly how you ought to draw those lines, but it's worth imagining and thinking and rethinking from time to time. And against the backdrop of the foreign tribe, the tribe of foreigners from whom we buy the cave, and also the half-siblings coming back together, the cousins, to bury their father, Abraham, so to speak, it's an interesting question about who's in and who is out. I don't have any good answer for you, but I thought I would share the way that I'm sitting with it this Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom.